welcome to another episode of Hobby Night School, where we like to educate anyone on new and old things in the hobby that you might want to be, well versed in. Today, we are very, very excited to introduce our guest, Andy Friedman. He's a visual artist and musician and a writer. He has done an incredible amount of work for New York Times, Rolling Stones, GQ, Vanity Fair, Ebony, the New Atlantic. My gosh, everything. The New Yorker, the New York Times Magazine. Is there anything he hasn't done? I am not sure. And most recently, he is a Topps artist. So we're really excited to have him on here to talk about sports cards and art.
Excited to be here. Thanks, you guys.
I can only assume that your work for GQ was just being a cover model.
Right. Unreleased bin, but yeah.
No, everyone aspires to be a GQ model, right? No?
Right.
Before we clicked record, we chatted for like maybe a minute, if that. And I was letting Andy know that one of Courtney's biggest highlights, and she doesn't get excited easy, was meeting you, Andy, at Culture Collision, because we have, if we were to flip the camera, there's showcases. And shout out to Amazon. These showcases are great, but once you put them up, you cannot touch them or everything falls. She absolutely loves all the project cards. And so to meet an artist that she's fond of your work and get an autograph was a big deal. And so obviously as a gentleman who wants my wife to be happy, you putting a smile on her face and making her trip that much more worthwhile. Big ups to you, my friend.
Oh, wow. Well, it was great to meet you, Courtney, and great to meet you, Jeremy. So it's a great trip. It's nice to be here now.
It was super cool. And I think, like Jeremy was saying, one of the best moments for me was like getting to meet you guys and BB Sketch. That was super cool too.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. Having a conversation about how cards are art, because I have had this debate for as long as I have been collecting, because some people just look at them as like sort of a commodity, or just like, because some are super mass produced, that kind of diminishes them as pieces of art. And I fully disagree.
I think the question needs to be distilled a little. I think asking if cards are art is the same thing as asking if paper or canvas is art or clay is art. A card is a forum upon which art can be produced or not art can be produced. I think, the question of what is art is entirely up to the artist to say. If the rest of the world doesn't agree with the artist, it doesn't change the fact that that artist made art, even if they're the only person in the world who accepts it as such. Nobody could take that away from the artist. In terms of whether the art resonates with people, whether people, get anything from it or inspired by it, all that's a whole other situation.
That's true. That's like really well put, because when I look at it, sometimes I feel like it's like I'm so passionate about it being art that it does resound with me that it might, just because I look at something and think that it's art doesn't mean that somebody else might, where
Well, I mean, if you go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and you see, like a cracked dish from Egypt from thousands of years ago, it's a relic of a particular time. It's an art object. Whether the dish was created for a, utilitarian purpose or a work of art, we don't really know. It doesn't really matter. It's a collectible art object that's born of its time and survived generations. Every card that's been produced, is a genuine relic of a cultural moment. They won't last as long as dishes from Egypt because they're, made of cardboard. But nobody can dispute the fact that they are genuine artifacts.
Yeah, they are. They're little pieces of history.
Yeah, and they're beautiful. That beautiful is subjective, but they're the marriage between graphic design and portrait photography, and now art cards, where people are actually hand drawing or whatever. There's so many ways to put on a show on the surface of a card. So yes, they're artifacts, whatever. Even the little cards from the 80s in the top set that you threw away that was like win a trip to spring training. I mean, those are beautiful relics of a time. Were those designed to make profound statements about the human condition or offer some kind of poetic or emotional content? Probably not. But if you react to it and are inspired by it, and you look at it as a worthy piece of art, no one can tell you that you're crazy or that you're wrong for doing that either. Even if the person who designed that card said, "What? This is just an advertisement. This isn't art." So it's like it goes both ways. It's like art is born from intention on the part of the artist, or it's born, in like a third person by appreciating something maybe that wasn't art. And you turn it into it by just marveling over it. So all of that is available to anybody, and people might collect because they love certain players, certain teams, certain artists, now certain colors, certain feelings that the cards evoke. I met someone at the Cultural Collision who collects, like I do, bashed up, beaten up cards that are like valueless in a perspective of grading and all that, but we love the stories that every crease and dog-eared corner tells. So you never know what's going to resonate with someone. Now, can cards become something more intentional in terms of offering a greater statement about our time and the human condition and the world we live in and all of that? Yeah. There was a time when a bunch of songs existed as singles in jukeboxes, and it was Frank Sinatra, when the technology to put out the 45, the 33 and a third long play record, 5 songs on a side. It was Frank Sinatra's concept to say, hey, wait a second, maybe if we knit all these songs together and use the mechanically reproduced image, the cardboard cover, to like tell a story about the songs that this package contains, we could create a kind of new form of expression where 10 songs that fit together tell a story. People will never listen to songs the same way, and it'll be part of a greater story. He invented what is called the concept album. He invented the album. I mean, in the Wee Small Hours, not a lot of people know this. In the Wee Small Hours was the first intentional statement consisting of 10 songs in a unified conceptual whole. Can that kind of thing exist in cards? Can you get a set that maybe it's not just showing favorite teams or sports or cultural icons or objects, but maybe there are greater stories to be told through card, the forum of cards.
I think that's so interesting because I feel like with the project cards, that's something that could be possible. Like I collect the Andy Pardee cards too. I really like him. The Pardee, his are like really like
friendly gore
monsters basically. And he'll do one for Topps and then he does one himself. But all of them, when he releases the cards, have this very like detailed and textured story. And I said Andy, I meant to say Alex, not Andy. I'm sorry. Alex Pardee. So they tell like a story with the card as he releases it. And I thought that was really cool. And then he'll make a companion card to the card that he made that you can buy from him separately. And I bought that along with all the other, when I find an artist that I like, I buy all of their cards. The players And I collect players specifically for sports cards typically, but when it comes to these Topps cards, I would say I collect the artists that I like more than the players because not it's not necessarily that they pick players that I would collect. Like for my team or whatever.
Right.
Like I have all the Griffey cards because my husband loves Griffey, so I bought all of those. But for like when Snoop Dogg did a card, like all these like artists, to me, it's more like when they look at the player, like how does the player, the card, the time make them feel? Like your card that you gave me. Um,
Bernie Williams, yeah.
you
Right.
do use watercolor and ink for yours, but some people don't. They use like more, you know, hard lines and like and whatever they. And you guys, so I'm sorry, I'm rambling because I get excited about this stuff. But why don't we talk a little bit about the process that goes into making them? Because I think people think that you like make a big painting and then they shrink it down to a card, but that's not how everyone does it, is it?
I don't know how everyone else does it. I know how I do it.
Right.
You know, there's no way, you know. Um, yeah, I work in ink and watercolor. I'm kind of an anomaly now because I actually make, you know, physical art. So in the first and I don't disparage digital art at all or digital artists. The only difference is, you know, the tangible original.
Right.
There are originals in digital art now that NFTs have arrived, and I think that that's worthy a statement. And whether those stick around or not remains to be seen. But conceptually, I think it's a win to create a. I mean, everything's created digitally, so to create an original, you know, relic out of a file is definitely relevant and necessary. Um, but yeah, I make handmade originals. So in the first series, which came out in 2021, Spotlight 70, I I drew all the cards 5 inches by 7, about like that, because I didn't want to reduce them too much. I didn't want to lose too much. But I was really excited about having the originals to show, and because I knew that Topps was putting out one of ones of each card, you know, and then over the winter, the prices on those one of ones really escalated. People got very excited about it, and so everyone likes to own the only one of something. And so I kind of thought making these available to collectors would be sort of like the ultimate one of one. And I would put them in the display, and people would kind of look at them and say, "Oh, cool, jumbo versions of your cards." They didn't see them as paintings, and they didn't fit into a magnetic one touch, you know. So, you know, card collectors aren't whether cards uh, whether certain cards are art, you know, or not. Most collectors aren't art collectors; they're card collectors, and so, you know, as cool as it was to have a 5 by 7 painting, I think once I started to make the original paintings the same size as a card, like I did for all of the cards in Spotlight 72, and put them in a magnetic one touch, they kind of excited the collector in a new way, because now they're able to like relate to them as both an art object and a one of one card. And that's the thing that collectors tell I hear over and over. They say they like to own those because it's like they feel like they're getting two collectibles in one, a one of one card and a handmade work of art. In the case of a one of one that was turned into a Topps card, you're getting three collectibles, because now you're also getting a, you know, legit piece of baseball historical memorabilia because it's a piece of art used by Topps to create a card. All those things go into it, you know. So
I
I
think really
like to, I kind of represent like a crossover between, you know, fine art world collectability and the trading card collectability.
I do feel like that's starting to become more of a crossover, just like with the vaults and the way that people do collect. And, you know, you were invited to Art Basel for Tops, which is like, I feel like that was unheard of. Like, people weren't inviting card, like, specifically, it wasn't like you as an artist, it was like Tops and their cards and you to show off like the art from cards. And you were saying that you kind of got sideways glances from people until they realized how insanely valuable what you were bringing to the table was, right?
You know, it was when it was eBay and eBay collectibles and the collectible app that hosted this gallery in the Scope Gallery during Miami Art Week, Art Basel, otherwise known as. Um, and I think, yeah, I heard talk about them feeling sort of, during load in other galleries and sort of what are you doing here kind of vibe. And it was fun to hear them say, meanwhile, we were the only people, wheeling in stuff with armed guards. So we heard a lot of really encouraging feedback that during that stretch from some people who just like didn't care about trading cards at all, but understood that there's something really unique going on here. Especially when they were talking with me about the things I was just talking with you about. Regardless of what's on the surface of the cards, it resonated with art lovers, this idea that a new forum for artistic expression and dissemination of ideas and collectability has been introduced. And that's what I see as this moment. Whether the greater art world sees that or not or cares doesn't really matter. It's been created. For the first time in history, people are, collecting artists through cards. I mean, people collect artists in New York City, the gallery world, all the time. They collect paintings. But in terms of mass reproduced imagery and trading cards, in the past, before Project 2020, whenever there was art on a card, except for Dick Perez and Diamond Kings,
Right.
there was no name, there was no person, it was just art. And that's cool. But adding, branding the artists like Topps has been doing is great, because I mean it's the difference. It's like all the records that we love, if there were just songs on discs but every cover was just blank and you didn't know anyone's name, you still have the music, but there's something about looking the artist in the eye and knowing who they are and looking at the cover to kind of like introduce us to this world that we're about to enter, and getting a sense of the artist based on how they look and dress and the things they say. That all helps people, invites them into the art performance. So it's a relevant way to, bring the horses to water, I guess. So
One thing,
this is a really exciting time.
one thing that we talk about a lot is how cardboard or cards have been almost a vehicle to bring people together, and we often talk about the cards being uh, the thing that creates the relationship, and you end up valuing the relationship more than the cards themselves. One thing as we're talking that I'm thinking through is I looked at them as cards first, but now we look at cards as art. You admire some of the design that goes into it. Like I love going back and listening to Carvin talk about, creating the Exquisite brand. Or we're starting to take our favorite cards and get local artists to do like larger versions of them that are more like you would hang on a wall. Like we have a showcase of cards, but that doesn't capture unless somebody's holding that individual card. I like having it blown up. So I think it's really cool how I never was an art sort of person, but now as we're talking through it, these little cards have me looking at art the same way. And to your point, whether it's a musician, an actor we like, an author we like, no matter what they put out, like every time 311 puts out an album, I'm gonna buy it. Every
Mhm.
time Tom Hardy comes out with a movie, I don't even know if it's got Tom Hardy in it, I'm gonna go see it. And so I can completely understand with art, if it's your artist, why would that be any different?
That's right. And that, I don't think the, art world necessarily has considered that to the
Do you think
level that they could or
art
should.
more accessible to people? It's
Absolutely. It needs to be more accessible.
I mean, obviously we have cards like you were talking about that are just like out of the reach of most people. But you can get a reprint of those cards. Like, I maybe someone couldn't afford one of your one of one cards, but if they really love your work, they can go and buy them and
Exactly.
I fully intend to get one of them. That's my next big thing. But I think it's super relevant, and I'm gonna like kind of bring it back to when you were talking about the Met and that bowl at the Met, because the Met and the Detroit Institute of Art have done showcases and have galleries in them based solely on sports cards. Like,
Yeah. Hmm.
the Detroit Institute of Art had like one from a collector in Michigan who has the only complete T206 set of cards, like the
Amazing.
know of. And you look at those are lithograph, right? Like who even that's like that they're beautiful. Like the
They are.
artwork went into them, and you look at them and you think this is like a moment in time where they were printing these cards. And like, the HNS, there's only what 75 of those in existence. Well, there was only, at who knows how many there are now, but it's pretty impressive to me that these little pieces of cardboard with beautiful imagery on them in some cases can be, completely inaccessible and also completely accessible to everyone.
Yeah, that was something that we talked about a lot at the booth in Miami, the democratization of collectability. And that's something I feel like I am proud to stand for. Because a kid can come up to my table and, spend like $10 on one of the base cards, and someone else can decide to buy the original painting for a lot more. And then they could go and get it graded. And then they can flip it. All that's all good. But like the important thing is not only one person gets to enjoy some version of ownership of the image. So it's, to me, it's like you can spend $750 for a ticket to go see 311 or whatever your favorite band is, but imagine if there were no records and no, you know iTunes or anything, and the only way that you could see the music is to spend $1,000 on a ticket to go see them live. My one of one paintings, to me, that's like the live experience. And yeah, they're gonna come at a higher premium because there's only one of them. It's original. uh it's the scarcity, it's precious, it's the live concert. But doesn't mean that if you can't, you know spend the money to own something like that you can't partake. I think it's very important that you should be able to. And in the art world, that's where I think things have been missing. It's all or nothing. And then, what's the equivalent of like the album experience in our art world, the way I see it? Catalogs. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not an expression, that's a catalog.
I agree. I feel like, you spend all of this time enjoying something, and then with cards, I feel like it's more like if you have a painting of an artist and it's like a print, that's like people are like, that's a print. Or like with a print of a card, that's very common and everybody has it and it's okay. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it does make a difference. And you're right, it is much more democratic for everybody to be able to have a little piece of something that's important to them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So
And
I
hopefully what they're owning, what they're taking home, whether it's the original or a card, is what that piece contains, the inspiration, like the friend thing. It should. I want my art to always be able to be there for someone when they need it. It's not just about having; it's about needing. I mean, that art at its best is a
I'm gonna
friend.
pick up another one of your cards because the girl that I was with at the show doesn't collect cards. But when she saw the Bernie Williams card, she remembered that when she was a kid, her dad loved him and she wanted it. So I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna get one and send it to her because she'll love that. But it's so funny. You had like a really cool moment at the show, and I just happened to be standing there when Dale Murphy came up to you. How was that? How was it? Was it like really exciting to like meet somebody that you painted like in real life and have that opportunity for them to see the art you did of them?
Yeah, Yeah, it's really exciting. I've gotten to meet a lot of my favorite players as a kid through this, and it's completely exciting. I never thought I'd cross paths with any of them or have any reason to. I worked at the New Yorker when I was a kid. I mean, I started when I was 23 years old. I was working in the mailroom, basically in a messenger. So part of my job was to go out and run errands for editors and writers, and I was sent in a black limousine to Yankee Stadium to go pick up some playoff tickets for one of the writers. And I got to kind of like, sit over here and where no one's allowed, where no one's supposed to be, except I had this clearance, because I was waiting for this person to come down and give me these golden tickets. And it was the door where all the players enter, and one by one they I see them kind of like shaking off the crowd outside. The door shuts, and they're just looking at me like I belong there, because I guess in the moment I was, and they were just kind of giving me a nod. So Darryl Strawberry, Wade Boggs, Chuck Knobloch, Paul O'Neill. I remember each one walking and just kind of looking at me like, hey, hey. And even that was so surreal, because I'm just like, what business do I have getting this interaction? Like I used to watch Wade Boggs when I was a kid, and he just like nodded at me. So, and that wasn't interacting as me. And so where this has become very exciting is like to meet my heroes as me, and have a personal talk with them, and it's really thrilling. And in terms of, I mean, they're also nice. That's the other thing, is just such good vibes. I mean, I don't know. I've just had, it's tremendously meaningful. And Dale Murphy is always known as the nicest guy. And when that all adds up in person, it's the most exciting thing. It's like he was so nice, so positive, so nice, so giving. So, it's just great. I mean, athletes are great role models at best. And for them to continue to be off the field, just the way you carry yourself and make yourself accessible and all that is just, they continue to inspire me.
When you're creating art for cards specifically, where does the inspiration come from?
The card and the colors and the rhythm of it, and maybe the nostalgia factor, maybe my mood in the day coupled with the colors. I mean, I've said it a lot of times. I mean, I'm less painting the players and more painting the cards, the patina, the color of the cardstock, the film. All that stuff plays into it. When you look at like an 87 Topps Pete Incaviglia, we get tickled, not just because it's like, oh, I remember Pete Incaviglia, and even beyond, like, I remember how excited I was to have that card when that first came out. But what's happening underneath it is subconscious emotional content of colors, colors and mood and action, and that's what triggers nostalgia for people. When they walk past my table, they're seeing familiar colors. They don't know yet that they're paintings or cards, and they stop because they're like, 1988 All-Star Tom Henke? Oh, that's a painting. And sometimes from people right there, they're like, it's a painting. Okay, keep walking. They're not interested. Fine. But sometimes that's, people get lured in. Like it almost helps them appreciating that card because it was painted. And that's the thing that I find so amazing, is like people have shelled out a lot of money for paintings of cards that they would not buy for $1.
Right.
And that says a lot about painting.
Right.
And that's why I constantly refer to each card that I paint as a landscape that I know intimately. And like given the mood of the day or the mood of my own mood, like I'm after something when I paint the card, and because I find myself in it, just like if I was painting a landscape of a sunset and a lake. If you know anything about what I'm talking about with that sunset and lake, then that landscape painting will bring you in, and you might think of your grandma's house. I wasn't thinking of your grandma, but you might. But that's because the moment is clear. You know, the poetry of the thing is clear, and I related to this scene, and so you relate to my relating to it. And that's what happens when I paint an 87 Topps Pete Incaviglia. Somebody is like, oh yes, I know exactly why he painted that card. I know exactly what he means when he paints that card, and I feel it. And all that I think is happening subconsciously, but I think that's what's happening. If each of my cards were black and white, I don't think it'd have the same response. It's the color. That's the music.
I'm going to tell you, each of the artists that I collect, it's for totally different reasons. Like I was talking about Alex and how I liked his like very like kind of grotesque and weird, because I'm really into that. I was like super into like Garbage Pail Kids when I was a kid. So that kind of things. And they used to paint those small too. Like those, they were like originals. That's neither here nor there. But what yours always did when I would look at them was it reminded me of the era. And when you're talking about you relate, it makes you think of your grandma's house. When I would look at them, like it was very much like they felt nostalgic, but in like very era appropriate manner. So like when you look at them, you're like, oh, I feel like everything about this makes me think of that time. And when you were saying that, I'm like, that's exactly what it was for me. So that's cool.
I remember
Very
these
cool.
vividly as a child, and I remember them never being in good condition. And earlier during the pod, you had mentioned like you liked crumpled up cards. You know, you like cards that had a story to them, and I wonder if that kind of like a parallel or even the same exact thing, because those were the cards when we were kids. I'm much older than you. I'm an '80s baby, not born.
You're older than me, did you say?
Yes, sir.
And you're an '80s baby?
Yeah, I was paying you a compliment, man. Just take the damn thing, Mr. GQ. But these cards, when we were kids, we played with them summer day. We traded them. We stuck them in our bike. We used them for everything. So seeing those cards, like sort of worn, and I mean worn in the greatest sense of the word, provides like a warm feeling, because it brings back, not that I have the greatest childhood memories, but those summer days playing with the cards were always very positive. You didn't have a care in the world. You were just playing with your cards.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you nailed it. You know, it all tells a story, you know, and based on your experience with the cards, you're going to react to certain artists' interpretations of cards and not react to others. You know, that's the thing. It's all subjective also. And that's why it's great to have a whole diverse range of artists and viewpoints and all that. But yeah. I mean, when I really respond more viscerally to a card that shows a little life than a Gem Mint 10. Like something happens when I look at a perfect, I don't really understand why it's better.
I can see that.
You know, I don't get it. Like I was just watching Pawn Stars with one of my kids and they were investigating an old first copy of Mad magazine when it was a comic book. You know, they brought in an expert, actually, I think he was from CGC. And they were just like, yeah, there's some yellowing on the edges here of the pages, and oh, look, there's a fingerprint there, and a little crease here. I'm sorry, but the value, it's really gonna diminish the value. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Oh, sorry, are you kidding me? The value just skyrocketed for me. Fingerprints, yellowed pages. Now I know it's not a reprint, and like is old. I mean, to me, first of all, perfection is an illusion anyway. And secondly, why is that the gold standard? I don't get it. I love a nice beat up card from the 50s because it means it was stuffed in a bike spoke or flipped against the wall.
There you
go. Each one is a one of one. You know, a Gem Mint 10 card in a case. Like, what have you ever accomplished in your life? Like what have you ever done? You know?
And nobody played with them. Like it's like toys that were never open and that nobody ever played with them.
Yeah, so what are we really what are we celebrating? And I respect it. We're celebrating the rarity of the fact that not many are, I don't want to say perfect, because actually perfection doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Firstly, perfection is subjective, because I think that the Lonnie Wernicke 1955 Bowman umpire card that I got at Culture Collision that looked like it was in the laundry is perfect. You could never duplicate it.
You
You
couldn't.
could never duplicate it, and I wouldn't want it completely gem mint 10. No way. No way. So perfection is subjective. But so I get it. Rarity, scarcity. Okay, there aren't too many that are in this, let's say, this condition. I respect that. But there's no story. The only story is like, this was protected from the reality of the world for all time. Whereas the beat up card from the 50s is like a wounded war vet, with like a purple heart sitting on the side of the curb begging for change. It's like you deserve to be on a stage in front of millions telling your story.
Pete and Cavilla saw some things.
Yeah. It did. If there's like rubber band scars on the side, then it was like, oh, maybe it was on the top of a pile in a rubber band. I mean, yeah, you bet it tells its story.
You designed the backs too?
Yeah. I came up with the concept with tops for the back. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine the little blurb about Bernie being a musician, that's got your fingerprints all over it.
I wrote each one of those.
What's that?
I wrote each one of those.
That's awesome. It's a nice little personal touch.
That's super cool. So what's the next?
In the first set, they were like, let's put a bio on the back of each card, a little bio. And I was like, I mean, there's 70 cards in the set. I can definitely say 70, semi-interesting things about my life as an artist in the past 20 years. Why don't we just put a different fact on the back of each one? And so they called it Talkin' Andy, like kind of riffing off the old Talkin' Baseball. So on the back of the first set, it's almost like an autobiography, which is kind of cool. I don't think not too many people I don't know if people have really noticed that yet, or if they have, maybe they don't care, which is fine. I haven't heard no one's ever come to me and say, oh, I saw on the back of the card. So, but I think it's kind of neat to have, something about the artist, as long as we're doing this, starting to kind of like, introduce that idea of artist as friend, I thought that would be kind of fun. So that was something we came up with the first set. The second one's all just, facts. Yeah.
That's cool though. I like that. So what's next for you? What are you doing next after?
Well, tomorrow I fly to the Burbank Card Show. You're going?
I'm going. Yeah, I'll be there.
Awesome. Great. I just finished up a couple of new things I'm going to bring there. I have a lot of new things, but I just finished these tonight. These are, let's see if you could see on this. It's a 1989 Don Russ painting of Oral Hershiser juggling baseballs when he was chasing down 59 consecutive scoreless innings. Here's an Easy E card.
Oh,
I like that.
I like that.
Here's one of these like really weird 1993 Bowman cards where they posed the baseball players in huh?
They were so weird.
Yeah, they're so weird. So I just kind of had to paint one of them. I think they're so weird. I made this one today. This is like 1960 pitching leaders. I tried to, stick with LA themed stuff. So there's Drysdale and Koufax is on that.
Ooh, okay.
And then I know that Rob likes these Dick cards that he collects. Card Father. So I made a couple of these. Anyway, so I'm going to go to the Burbank Card Show tomorrow. I was very excited to have contributed the commemorative poster for that show, and I think they're making a limited numbered trading card version of the poster too. So they're gonna have Prince posters. I'm gonna go to the Philly show in March, working on a bunch of new things that you might hear more about over the year. Working on just working a lot, or really playing, I guess.
It's so cool to be able to do something that you're passionate about as your job and also get to like for me, I love doing the card stuff. So the fact that now, like, I got to go to Atlanta and go to Culture Collision, and now this week I'm going to Burbank, and then we're gonna go to the Mint in July, March. Sorry, end of March, early April, and then Chicago in July for national. So we just
Hmm.
get to. I'm sorry, we do so many shows. I get the dates,
I
and
mean, that's great.
it's so exciting, and you get to like meet new people and see new things, and
How great is that?
it is. It's exciting. It's fun. It's an
It
adventure.
is. The
One
community has been great. It's great to just. I've loved everyone I've gotten to know through this.
that's
Sorry, what were you saying, Jeremy?
I was just gonna say, I'm curious, like when Tops approached you about doing this in the first place, do they give you any parameters or guidelines, or is it just like you have 100% control, you get to choose the player, the design, and it's their
Yeah,
hands off?
yeah. I'm fortunate that I got to support myself as an artist for the last 22, 23 years. But most of that has been through through working as an editorial illustrator, drawing celebrities for magazines, and that's not it's not something I studied or ever wanted to do. A lot of people say, "What's the difference between fine art and illustration?" So let's start by answering that question. An illustrator is hired to realize the creative vision of the client. Basically, the client can't draw, so you can. Here's some money, draw us so and so just like this. No, not like that, like this.
Yeah.
Okay, great. The minute you start to become an artist as an illustrator and go, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I kind of thought this way might be better. Good for you, go be an artist, and we're going to call a different illustrator. You're providing an artistic service. So I was really good at it because I saved my art for my art, and I used the money I made as an illustrator to support my family and my art interests. So I was busy running around the country with my music, as you mentioned, all that stuff. I was keeping it going because I didn't want to just stop, just be an illustrator. But still, I realized there are worse jobs to have. But what artist likes to be told what to draw, when to draw it, and how to draw it? Until the Tops project, I've never been able to, I've never been given free reign to have complete creative control, like as my livelihood. So after 20 something years, just like they said it would be when I was in art school, I stopped illustrating. I don't illustrate anymore, and this is full time. And it's like Tops is almost like a record label. They don't want to tell the artists what to do. They're the record label, and they want artists who have visions and ideas because they have vision. They have vision of finding artists with vision, and then they have the machine that they can put behind it. So yeah, no, it behooves them to give the artist complete creative control, and that's what I got, and it was unbelievable experience. Uh, Unbelievable experience to be given full free range to just kind of do your thing.
That's
So yeah,
so cool.
kudos to Tops.
That's really impressive because I would have guessed because do they give you like a list of players like these are the players that like, we want like done or because I know, there's a lot that are like the same player. Like I have like 75 Trout cards, I think. So,
Yeah, there are some players that they don't have the rights to.
right.
So they gave me a long list of players I could choose from.
Okay.
And in terms of what I'm kind of showcasing, I guess we'd call them the fan favorites, less the kind of like all-time icons. Project 2020 had a lot of amazing artists from around the world paying tribute to like all the iconic cards. I did this piece for the New Yorker called "The Loneliness of the Common Player" about how I like drawing kind of like lesser known players. That's the conversation that Tops and I had after they saw that, and we're like, you should do a Project 2020 card. I said, yeah, I mean, really cool, but I kind of like would love to stay in the lane of maybe offering a kind of like more obscure name, like Lee Mazzilli or something. And they liked that idea so much, they gave me my own set that's Spotlight 70.
Yeah.
So originally, I wanted like total like unknown names, but they're like, yeah, we don't have the rights to those. We never thought we'd need the rights to those, but if you could work with this list, which of course I could, and I did, but that's how the names were selected from a long list of the players that were available legally to use.
So I collect very obscure players, like specifically macabre players that were either involved in a crime or committed a crime.
Ron LaFleur or something like that.
Yeah, like Marty Bergen or like Ray Downs, you know, those kind of guys that like most people have never heard of, nor do they care about. I tell you, some of those cards are so hard to find. Like you can't even find them because they were like, I mean, Marty Bergen played for like the Boston Bean Eaters. I don't know, like he has like 3 cards and one of them was a pin, and you can't find them. So I want Topps to do a set of cards like that. So I'm putting in my request.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty cool idea.
Maybe not him though. He was kind of a terrible person. So
oh yeah. Right. Well, so is Ty Cobb.
Yeah. True. So, all right. Well, I don't want to keep you too late, but we did want. I really want to thank you for just like taking the time to like jump on here. I know you're busy. You're flying out tomorrow.
Oh, so much fun.
This was a blast, and it meant a lot to me as like somebody who collects specific artists within, you know, these project cards, and to like meet somebody whose cards I collect. It's almost like it almost felt like meeting one of the players, which
wow,
met our players, but like I'm never gonna meet some of these guys that you painted, so like
might as well meet me.
Yeah. I didn't really like that. I bet it feels that way.
Here's your consolation prize.
Like some of these guys you could never meet, but like you, like it was amazing to meet you. It felt like meeting like a famous, like I don't know, you're famous to me. So
well, thank you. That's very sweet of you. It's nice meeting you as well. And yeah, it's 2 ways. It's really special. There's a lot of excitement, you know. It's a wonderful community, and it's been great to connect with you guys. It was great to meet you on the floor there, and it's great to sit down tonight and chat with you guys. And I guess I'll see you in Burbank.
Before we get out of here, where can anybody that's going to listen to this, where can they purchase some of your work, or where can they follow you or see you?
Yeah, I mean, my Instagram page is pretty much it, you know, Sunday Friedman. And from there you can get to my website, which kind of like has my whole history, and you can kind of look at the old New Yorker cartoons I did and the characters and my music and all that stuff. In terms of where to buy my work, somebody's calling. Bank card show calling. We'll call them back in a second. In terms of where you could buy my work, it's really at my table when I travel, which is why I do that. I don't make stuff available online on a rolling basis. I might release a card every now and again and say it's up for 3 days. If no one buys it, I take it off. So yeah, come to the table at any of these shows. I go to all the shows, and I will say to anyone listening, come to the table. Come say hi.
Don't be like me and be like a weird fangirl, because I fully did that. I was like, I made someone introduce me to him because I was too nervous to go on myself. I'm not joking. Like I was so excited because I love your card. I love your art.
It's really sweet. Well, I'm glad you came up. It's nice to meet you.
It was a pleasure. I'll say this as we wrap up. Your story's cool too. There's a lot of people that have a lot of aspirations and dreams, and they don't stick with it. And to hear that you've been pushing hard for 20 plus years to finally have full control of something that's close to you and that you cherish, I think that in itself is a piece of art. And so congratulations to you and your family, and we wish you nothing but health, wealth, and success.
Thank you. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Right back to you.
All right. And I will link all of your information in all the bios down here. So if anyone wants to just like easily find you, they'll be there.
Okay, great.
Have a great night.
Thank you. You too, guys. See you soon.